Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello and welcome to this episode of our show. This is your host, Keith Doherty. Today our special guest is top real estate broker Rakesh Parikh of Coldwell Banker Residential Brokerage based out of Chicago, Illinois. Rakesh has been a licensed broker in Illinois since August 2009, specializing in distressed sales, specifically bank-owned properties or REOs, and short sales, where he handles the short sale negotiations with the lender. His background is in accounting and finance. He is a registered certified public accountant in the state of Illinois. He still practices in this field. He's sold over $10 million in REOs and short sales each year since he has been licensed. Some of his clients include Fannie Mae, Bank of America, Chase, and Fay Financial. All right, with all that said, Rakesh, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
If we could start for our listeners, what led you into real estate? Was it something that you always knew you wanted to do, or did you maybe stumble into it?
I think I stumbled into it. I had a friend that actually went to work for Fannie Mae, and they were looking for Chicago brokers. I had passed my real estate broker's test a couple years ago, and I had it in a holding pattern with a friend of mine. And so this friend with Fannie Mae invited me to apply to become a broker to liquidate distressed REO Fannie Mae property in the Chicagoland area. And it kind of jump-started my quote-unquote career in real estate.
And do you think you could talk a little bit about what personal attributes, traits, or qualities you think have most contributed to the success that you've had in real estate?
You know, I think communication is key, listening to what the client wants and following through. If you say something, I think you only have your reputation in this business, and if you do say something and you set certain expectations, you need to follow through with them. And that kind of separates you from the other 90% of the brokers out there.
And do you think you could give our listeners an example of when these traits have played a role in your path toward success?
I think that every time that I come across, whether it's a new buyer or, a buyer renter, someone on the fence, or even a bank-owned client, it's critical that you listen to what their needs are and even make a list of their wants or what they want as far as an action plan, and following through is kind of, in my opinion, the most important trait that a broker can have, and following through that with that action plan is critical.
And Rakesh, I think whenever somebody builds a successful career or business, that sometimes getting there, there's bumps in the road along the way. Can you talk a little bit about some of the adversities and trials you've had to overcome in order to achieve your goals?
Well, I think part of it is dealing with, in my mind, individuals, because a home is a person's probably largest investment over the course of their life. And so there's a difference dealing with banks and asset managers as opposed to individual buyers, and I'm okay dealing with asset managers and banks because they follow a model and they know exactly how much or what they want to sell it for and how much they can reduce the price and still make it a good win-win for them and the buyer. With a buyer, or in some cases a seller, when I do put a listing on or I take a buyer through, you're dealing with a lot of emotions. Initially, they tend to like everything, and then they circle back and they have certain restrictions. So what I try to do is I try to understand what their wants are. I make a list of things. I ask them to go over that list with me prior to sending out listings, and even listing a property, we have to set certain expectations. And I think that is critical. As far as bumps on the road, you're dealing with personalities they're all different across the board, and I think that's the biggest hurdle or obstacle I've encountered over my 6-7 years in this business.
And I guess as these come up for you, what kept you going despite the obstacles? Why didn't you give up? What was your driving force?
I like working with people. I like working with the individual. It's always a challenge, especially the individual buyer or seller. There's certain expectations they have. There's certain expectations I have based on the market. Typically, when you're dealing with a seller, they think that their apartment, condo, building, house is worth, X amount more. And it's always a challenge. They obviously want to pick the best person to sell their property, and they want it at a certain price point. It's always a challenge trying to meet that price point. We're lucky in most cases because we price it right. In the case of a buyer, there's always expectations of the buyer too, because they want everything, and not every property has everything that they want. So there's always a negotiation with them, and I think that's always interesting when you're dealing with different personalities.
And Rakesh, kind of looking forward, what's your vision for your business and your career over the next 5 years?
I think, you're seeing it right now. Everything's going digital, or everything's online. You could sign contracts online. Everything is you're meeting new clients through social media, through Twitter, through Facebook. It's just like referrals instead of, we're going less and less with print media and postcards. So I think everything is digital. I think the actual perfect buyer is already looking at listings online. And so as far as my vision for the next 5 years is, I want to be there with social media. I want to be there with online digital presence. I still think that we're going to be successful, and we're going to see a lot of distressed inventory come on the market. Not as much as we've seen in 2008 and 2009, but I think we'll still have a toe in the water in the distressed market. And obviously, it's a new kind of buyer. We have to cater to the millennials now, and so we need to figure out what their wants are. They tend to rent more, and rental listings aren't part of our business. We have it in our office, but it's not part of my business. But we need to figure out a plan on how to sell to millennials, make it a win-win for them.
And I guess kind of on top of that, what do you feel is the best way you market yourself as a real estate professional so you can have continual growth?
I think, what I've been successful is educating the buyer, seller, the consumer. Everyone has their sales approach. Mine is I consider a little laid back. I like to educate, people on the real estate market. Everyone has their own perception, their own opinion of where the market's going, so I like to, quote unquote, open their eyes on realistically what's happening in the Chicago market. So my biggest strength, I guess, is opening or educating buyers and sellers in the real estate market and the local, in where I'm in Lincoln Park, Lakeview, the downtown area. I don't pretend, or my expertise is not in the suburbs. It's just in the city. So that's what I focus on.
And Rakesh, I think whenever the general public looks at real estate agents, they don't fully understand the value that they provide from both a buyer and a seller standpoint. What do you think the biggest misconception or myth people have about working with a real estate agent?
I think at the end of the day, the misconception is all they're looking for is the commission. And, I can't stress enough that there's so many parties involved in a real estate transaction that I think the broker brings everyone together, starting with whether they're selling the listing or they're bringing buyers through. We still need a contract. We still need to go through attorney review and inspection. We still need to go through escrow. So there's so many variables involved, and I think the key to brokers, especially in Chicago, is to bring all the parties together to close the deal. Now, ultimately, the client is happy, whether they're the seller or the buyer. That's the most important part. But I think the misconception is, brokers don't listen. They just want to push and try and get something under contract for the commission. I don't think that's true. I mean, they can't control all aspects of the deal. So I think that refutes the point that they're or the argument that they're trying to, they're out for themselves and they're out for the commission. I think that they're critical in bringing everyone together to close the deal, and I think that is not fully understood.
And Rakesh, let's say you get a call from a family member or a friend, and they're in another state, and they want to sell their home. Now, obviously, with your experience and with your connections, you could probably look up an agent and do a referral. But from a general advice standpoint, what advice would you give them about selecting an agent that could best serve their needs?
I think the key is listening to what they want. If they're a buyer, what their needs are. And I'm talking about schools for kids, location. They need to create a list. And, whether they're working with a buyer that's bought or sold, that's only worked 2 or 3 transactions or someone that's worked hundreds of transactions. Plan is simple. Create a list of needs and wants and pare it down because, like our market, the MLS is everywhere and everything is online. So you can, as a buyer, as a consumer, you can find what you want online. But I think the key is to work with someone who's willing to listen, who has good negotiation skills, and works in your best interest. And that in my opinion, is a broker that's a good fit for either a family member or myself.
And Rakesh, obviously based out of the Chicago, Illinois area, and if somebody's looking for real estate services or an agent in that general area, what's the best way they can find out more information about you and how you can help them?
They can check my website out on the internet. It's www.buychicagoproperties.com. They can also reach me at 312-475-3260. But the website is great. It's interactive. They can actually sign on for a user ID and password. It's free, and they can actually access all the MLS listings. Anything that I can find on the MLS, they can find as well. So they can look at the entire inventory as opposed to Zillow and Trulia and some of the other third-party websites that only provide you certain access until you sign up, and then they want some sort of trial fee. So log into my websites. It's free, and you can find anything you want.
Excellent. Well, Rakesh, obviously want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come here today and share all your professional real estate experience with our listeners. And if you're listening and you want to learn more about Rakesh, obviously you can go to his website, like you said. Also below this interview, we'll have a link to his site and any other contact information we have so you can see how he can help you with your real estate needs. So with that said, everybody, until our next show, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.